Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever it is you are in the world, and welcome to another edition of the Living World of Darkness. This evening we start on the shores of the east end of Coney Island. A little bit away from all of the fanfare of the carnival rides and apartments. And standing out at the shore, a individual who had only recently made it back to the city stands with a prepaid cell phone in hand, looking at it, pressing a few buttons to send a few texts to the only number she really has. And she currently stands watching the waves roll in and out, waiting on someone who she hasn't seen in quite some time.
Walking through the Coney Island amusements, seeing the stalls and the games, the various lights and tinsel and happy-go-lucky, ignorant New Yorkers going about their festive ways, children, parents, young couples, all with the same disinterested stare, comes walking the suited form of contemplates the pattern. He looks out into the crowd, seemingly guided by some unknown force as he marches, rather casually, towards the pier itself to stand behind the young woman who he has been seeking. He does not speak, but simply stands beside her and watches the waves as they crash in and out of the coast.
Spins a Wild Silk looks out at the waves and watching them roll in their rather unruly pattern and simply smirks. You know, I often wondered if you were a fan of the ocean, how random it can be.
You can set your watch by the tides, sibling. The ocean is not random, that it appears so. Like this world, it may appear chaotic and spiraling on its axis when there are patterns in everything.
Never really thought of it that way, but you do have a point. How has your time away from the city been?
Restful.
Restful.
It's a shame you didn't join me. Spain is wonderful this time of year.
Not really the place that I'd hoped to go. I visited many places across this country. After all, I am a New York native. Maybe not Manhattan native, but I was born in this state, along with 200 other siblings. But I saw those giant trees in California, in Sequoia National Park. That was something rather spectacular. There's some poor soul who works for the National Park Service who climbs those trees to catalog growth and found me sitting on one of the high branches, just staring out at the sunset. I don't think he quite saw me until he was almost right next to me. He damn near fell out of his harness. It was quite amusing.
Well, one should never balk at a free meal.
Free meal? No. I was sitting there just as I'm sitting before you now. He was amazed that someone could actually climb one of these without any gear.
Maybe didn't raise any suspicion, sibling.
No. I learned from my last few experiences. I remember you instructed me not too long ago when I had ventured into Big Sister's territory to tread carefully. And I think I've done so fairly well.
Your education is coming along splendidly.
Yes. She'll reach down into a bag that hangs from her side and pull out a book with a rather notable title that she seems to loathe, and she just places it on the railing of the pier. This book was very misleading in its title, and yet it comes so highly recommended. There is not a single shade of any color, certainly not 50.
The creature, more commonly known as Sable, grimaces at the book. Yes, quite.
You told me to trust the people at bookstores, that they would have good judgment when it came to these sort of things, and I asked for a book that I should enjoy.
It seems that the mortal mind relishes the idea of control, not having to make their own decisions. I suppose this is why they've come up with such fabrications as fate and institutions to tell them how to live their lives. I myself did not stomach the book for very long. Poorly written, and the fetishistic subtones were distasteful.
And here I was thinking that it would be right up your alley, this aspect of control, this aspect of ordering that you seem to be so intrinsically bound to.
It's control without purpose. Pattern without substance or no boundaries. It is more grandmother's work than mine.
This is true, I suppose. What would be the word that you would assign to something like this?
It would not surprise me. That or a leech, perhaps. Who knows? The mortal mind is a fabrication that I don't think even the longest lived of ours can truly control.
Wyld Spider will turn around and rest her back against the railing and just look at Sable. So, any correspondence with anybody in the city, Mr. Silas, or any of your other friends?
No. Half the reason I left the country is to get a respite from the madness that is this city. Although I must say, maybe it is rose-tinted glasses, but it is not unpleasant returning. The air seems a little sweeter. The feeling of the city seems to have reordered itself. It is rare we get to come back on our work for Mother and get to appreciate the good we did.
I don't sense any of the looming dread that was in the city before.
No. I had a brief jaunt within the Umbra. It is not perfect, but it is better. There's still much work to do here, but there are small pockets of this city that are beginning to grow. Less stifling, less strangled, less great big voids of destruction. Perhaps our work is just the small pebble that will create the avalanche back to a new world order.
That's a bit cockeyed optimism there coming from you.
Perhaps it's so rare that things go according to plan. He says, smirking a little. Besides,
Well, the spider will chuckle a bit. And here I was hoping that I was rubbing off on you in some form.
I will not deny that it is not unpleasant to see you again, Sibley.
Wyld Spider will stretch out her arms and just yawn and sort of sigh. Yep, I know it's awesome to see me again.
He looks at her a little complexed.
What? Are you fearing the day that I learned how to be smug?
No. Your outbursts of emotion are still quite alien to me.
Ah, well, new perspectives have come from many different places, and I have to say that the time that we had earlier this in the city were enlightening. I learned how to act human instead of just wearing a shape.
And how is it? Does it fit well?
It's awkward, and still many of the social norms and customs are somewhat lost on me, but I don't draw as much attention to myself as I once did.
I
I still
envy
have
you,
an
sibling.
inkling. You do?
It is so freeing being our true form as a human. Before I understood my parentage and the great family we are a part of, humans and myself are lost in this world, believing themselves to be such a pinnacle cornerstone. To be able to revert back to a purer form is a sigh of relief. I suspect it is very difficult going the other way round.
Well, I think our kind has an advantage on most of the other breeds out there. That we have, as you said, perspective that most don't. Certain restraint. And we aren't quite as bound by Hamid or Arachnid as they are.
We should feel pity for them more than anything, sweet sibling. They do not have as guiding a mother as we do.
No, no, their mother is distant, and what's the word you've used? Is the context of flippant, right?
It'll serve.
They don't have quite the connection that we do. And I could not imagine not being able to know that she watches us, doesn't watch us directly.
Has she spoken to you at all?
Well, she did order me back, taught me a interesting trick or two.
You were always the favourite. I had no such words, but a general feeling that we had to return.
Uh, well, there were certain blessings that were given to me that ended up being a burden, especially when that creature was looming over the city, sending nightmarish visions to us all.
Yes, you endured admirably.
So don't always think that I always have an advantage on you, because there are times that it was not all it was cracked up to be. And I've come to learn that she is no more closer to me than any of the other siblings. I just am more or less, I suppose, trusted to deliver messages and given a different responsibility. I do think that Mother intended for you to be the leader of the three of us.
That's kind of you to say, but in our last operation I lost my way. Got too caught up in the machinations of the other creatures and lost sight of our goal.
Gave you quite a bit of knowledge, though.
Yes, but at what cost?
Hmm. Well, as you said, the city is in better shape than when we left it. And I'll agree that I'd like to think that that was in some small part to us.
Brother has a plan, and we have to take solace in that. But speaking of others, have you kept in contact with any of the denizens of the city?
No, I didn't have the opportunity. The only individuals I knew were Silas, and I had no contact information for him, Veronica, and the Fallen by the name of Lily, I believe her name was.
Ah, yes. The beast that trashed my art gallery.
Oh, wow, her and I had more in common than I originally thought. And Wyld Spider will chuckle at that.
It's just a building, it can be replaced.
Hmm. Did you ever get anybody to buy that wonderful bit of art that I put on in your gallery?
He freezes, and his eyes narrow slightly.
There is a ear-to-ear smirk on Wyld Spider's face at that one. Still not looking at him, just looking straight forward into the crowd.
Yes, your performance work was very well received critically, but no one bought it.
It's a shame.
Unfortunately, the events of the evening overshadowed any of the artwork displayed.
Yes, I do remember how one of the leeches became very, very ill-mannered when you tried to simply give him a means to get a leg up on the competition.
They operate very differently in the city than elsewhere. I won't make that mistake again. Although it did introduce us to some of the erstwhile allies in the leeches, and it was not too difficult to get rid of.
Hmm. I think I'd really like to see Mr. Silas again. He did stick up for us when the, those leeches were ready to bring down your door.
We should make announcements. Leeches are very strict about etiquette, and
I
it
wouldn't
doesn't
even know
hurt
where
to
to
have.
find him, in all honesty.
I beg your pardon?
Said I wouldn't even know where to start looking for him, in all honesty.
There's a few places I suspect he has his ear to the ground. If you do not wish to be known in the city, I will make contact, or I will arrange for a meeting.
Hmm.
It is good to keep them close at hand in case we need them again.
Well, Silas is still willing to come to our aid when we're being threatened. That's a interesting and useful ally, I suppose.
Leeches all want something. They are of the worm. They never do anything out of unselfishness.
True, but useful, correct?
Indeed. Very predictable, which is useful.
I suppose I should probably visit those in the park, or at least see what their situation is.
I do not envy you in that task. The barbarians are most difficult. Although I did make at least positive contact with one.
Hmm. I met several that were pleasant enough, and then others that were absolutely terrifying.
There is a locale for the other wildling creatures that I discovered accidentally. Have you been to Giles's bar? I forget what it's called.
No, I didn't even know there was a individual by the name of Giles.
I'll have to take you sometime. It is good to keep an eye on little bludgeoning wildlings. It would be a shame if all our work were to go to naught and the wild was stamped out of this place.
Hmm. It will be a trick, that is for sure. Hmm. Well, for now, I suppose we should be finding a new place to create a Siley.
Is the old one taken down?
No, but I do believe that Veronica found out where it was. One of the. Well, I'm not exactly going to call her human. I don't even know exactly what she was. But suffice it to say, if someone knows where it is, it's probably not a safe place to be anymore.
No. A new locale will have to be arranged.
It's going to have to be on your tab, unfortunately, until at least I can
It'll,
find a way to pass for employment. I still don't have any documentation. It's a little bit harder to find a place to work. I did attempt to get a job while in California.
doing what?
Farming?
Farming.
Mm-hmm.
And how did that go?
My employer was somewhat perturbed that as he said, a pretty little white girl like you would be undocumented. I'm not sure what he meant.
I don't think you want to.
Uh, that bad?
Nothing I would repeat in polite society. I don't think anyone would mind if he was found within his own crops.
Maybe, but that's not my way, at least when I can avoid it.
Yes, you have been rather soft.
Well, one has to keep up appearances.
Just so.
So then, perhaps food and then finding a place to stay for the evening?
Sushi?
But sushi's fine. I like sushi.
As I recall, you had quite a hankering for it by the time I left.
It is an interesting food, and I've gotten more or less used to nibbling on the rice bits.
Have you dined fully?
Oh, in that regard, yes. Yes.
Then it'll be easier then. Any preference to a locale?
Anywhere but this island. Too many people running around, too much temptation, and those carnival people are really pushy. They literally were putting darts in my hands and trying to drag me towards their uh, their games. First throw's free. Everything after that, I'll give you at a discount. When I told him I didn't have any money, he got really angry.
Welcome to America.
Indeed.
Everything's
Um,
free as long as you have the money.
True. Well, lead on then.
And with that, Sable turns, takes a lingering look at the ocean once more, as if assessing it, judging it as compared to other oceans in other times, daring it to go out of his own personal time sink, and then carries through the carnival.
Wyld Spider will follow in pursuit and smile that once again siblings are reunited. And there we can end our scene.